If 2020 was the year that wouldn't end, 2021 would be the year that didn't exist. It's borderline existential how fast 2021 went. Granted, I'm not sure why you'd want to hold 2021 fondly, as COVID continues to mutate and countless natural disasters cause billions of dollars in damages. The degradation of the natural world and society feels more present than it ever has. So much happened in 2021 that even just trying to conjure and process it is as exhausting as it is living it.
Every day I wake up!
But within everything that happened, it would be a lie to say that there wasn't some positivity that kept tickling that sweet, sweet serotonin hormone. It's been hard on a lot of us, but sometimes holding close to things that we love and the hobbies that make us happy is the only thing that keeps us going. And by taking a page out of Super Eye Patch Wolf's book, I'm going to do just that. This video won't be deep or analytical, merely me reminiscing and waxing poetically upon the things that I personally found the most joy out of in 2021, before we send it off into the great celestial dumpster and light it on fire.
You son of a bitch!
This is the Faves 2021. As you'll find out later in this video, I particularly enjoy myself a bit of music. A joy I can't particularly share towards Sonic the Hedgehog. Luckily, my better half has made great strides in converting me into a fan, and among them has been watching the Sonic 30th Anniversary Symphony, a passionate celebration of 3 decades of the Blue Blur performed through vibrant medleys of the vast catalog of games. My personal favorites being the Sonic Mania medley, the performance of Can You Feel the Sunshine, and the absolutely hype reunion of Crush 40, the band having the absolute time of their life performing tracks such as the Sonic Heroes theme, Sonic Boom, and Live and Learn from Sonic Adventure 2, that had both me and my girlfriend both singing along wildly. A must-watch for anyone who loves video game OSTs, and an absolute labor of love from Sonic and Sega to its fans. So, hey, I like pro wrestling? Oh god, please come back, please, I swear! Well, if you, dear viewer, are also a fan of pro wrestling, then I cannot recommend the video essays of one Joseph Montacillo enough, covering a vast array of topics including his deeply fascinating and meticulously constructed Walking the King's Road series, highlighting and dissecting the golden age of All Japan Pro Wrestling in the late 80s to 90s, from Jumbo Tsuruda's dominance over the company to terrifying Gaijin and Stan Hansen, along with the rise of the Four Pillars of Heaven. Joseph displays such a deep passion for his topics that I am always motivated and sucked in every time he uploads a video. None more prevalent than his video on my personal favorite pro wrestler of all time called Bryan Danielson is the Greatest Wrestler of All Time, a personal love letter to the GOAT, breaking down all the different aspects of his career, from his in-ring ability, character work, and even his long-term effects on the business and how it changed even the notoriously stubborn WWE. I walk away each time I watch his videos with a newfound respect for the art that wasn't there before, and I cannot recommend his channel more for that. Aerial Knight's Never Yield isn't going to particularly light your world on fire with its gameplay or its story. It's an endless runner with a vague narrative, and once you get the hang of it, it very much breaks down into a game of Simon Says as you traverse different obstacles according to the colors presented on screen, with the addition of slow-mo on lower difficulties, disrupting the flow of movement. And yet, man, this game is just so damn cool. Whether it's the vibrancy of futuristic Detroit lit by neon lights, the varied and slick costumes you can unlock by beating each level, or the absolutely banger hip-hop jazz fusion soundtrack. To say that Never Yield doesn't have a personality to it would be a genuine lie. Even when the gameplay would reveal itself to be frustrating, I was personally never bothered. When you get that one perfect run where your movements and timing match up with the soundtrack, it creates this excellent flow experience where you just vibe out to everything happening around you. It's my favorite indie game of the year, and I look forward to what Aerial Knights does in the future. Absolutely piping hot take you're not going to believe, but I'll be the 10,000th person to say this. Resident Evil 8, it's pretty good. Damn good, in fact. So good that I beat it to completion 5 different times and came away with something new to experience and enjoy each and every time. What makes me enjoy Resident Evil 8 the most is just how much it revels in how ridiculous and silly its own universe is. It's not trying to shred your nerves or act like it's serious like Resident Evil 7, it's just a wildly entertaining 8 to 10 hour haunted house ride with guns and...
About to buy Resident Evil just to smack Lady Dimitrescu's ass.
horniness, presented in the form of the Four Lords, with their own gimmick, charm, and location that makes each and every single one unique and memorable to them. Whether it's the village itself destroyed by the Lords filled with little details of personal shrines and decor, to the lavish Castle Dimitrescu of ornate art, gothic architecture, and dark secrets hoping to find you in the dungeon, to even the cold and soulless machines of Eisenberg's factories, given more depth by the numerous pieces of lore you can find throughout their stages that reveal just how terrifying and even tragic these figures are. I could go on, and honestly, if you're watching this, you've already played it as much as I. But for those who haven't, I heavily implore you to take your time with this game, get lost in the atmosphere and setting, experiment with different weapons and items. It's honestly the most fun I've had with the Resident Evil series, and without a doubt it's high on my list of games of the year. Metroid Dread fucks! From the intense white-knuckle excitement of each boss fight, cinematic and character progression, Metroid Dread just simply fucks. The way the game constantly pushes you to get stronger as you face deadlier foes, gaining familiar upgrades like the Screw Attack and Power Bomb, make for gameplay that's just as rewarding as it is challenging, and it's within that challenge that makes for Dread being so endlessly enjoyable. Metroid Dread's difficulty is fair. Dying in Metroid Dread isn't so much the game being cheap or the patterns being broken, it hinges on how much you yourself understood the mechanics and items given to you, and once you get a hold of it and truly master the use of your arsenal, you get rewarded with some of the most intense and personal boss fights I've played all year. Speaking of personal, Samus herself has so much personality despite having little dialogue. She holds so much personality in the way she interacts with the world, cast of characters, and even longtime rivals in her mannerisms, without ever having to utter a word, bolstered by visual cues of your armor changing color and form that make the desire to push against unfathomable odds all the more desirable. I had an absolute blast with Metroid Dread, and given how well it did in 2021, it's exciting to see where the series goes next. But in the meantime, let's see how well it can cut down on that completion time. Star Wars Visions is everything I've been wanting from Star Wars for the past decade. New, fresh, and brimming with a diverse set of creative minds, making the universe feel unique in their own image. From Kamikaze Doga's strikingly stylistic The Duel, boasting the best visuals and fight scenes, to the wonderfully paced and lush world-building of Production IG's The Ninth Jedi, to the absolute batshit wildness of Studio Trigger's The Twins. The latter being an absolute hoot to watch with my dad, whom never gave two shits about anime his whole life, but was reduced to a giddy 8-year-old cheering and laughing with delight the whole runtime, loudly proclaiming, "This is so anime," proving that, regardless of style or cultural differences, anime rules, and me being proud that I showed him something that we could both enjoy together. Star Wars is at its most enjoyable and interesting when the universe is simultaneously vast and open, and its storytelling focused and intimate, and what makes each short feel so distinct and joyous is that while each short feels like Star Wars, each animation studio gets free rein to be as creative and unique as possible. Even if some, like Science Saru's Akakiri, comes across as bizarre, its ambition is admirable in comparison to the other shorts. All in all, Star Wars Visions proves that The Mandalorian wasn't a fluke victory, and that the future of this billion-dollar franchise looks to be punching its way back into hyperspace with new ideas and bold visions. If I were to describe the sheer quality of the final season of Netflix's Castlevania, it would be baffling. You wouldn't expect an animated series based on a franchise that spawned...
Die, monster! You don't belong in this world!
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets!
To indulge in Game of Thrones style of warring factions and political power plays, and honestly, I'd say Castlevania's better being half its length and choosing not to lobotomize its own narrative through rushed pacing. Easily the best quality of Castlevania has always been allowing its characters, whether friend or foe, to have three-dimensional qualities with understandable motivations that drive them to places that feel authentic to them. None more presentable than in my favorite character of Isaac. His journey from Dracula's general and skilled forge master, to wandering the earth swearing revenge among mankind, to realizing the futility in genocide and carving his own path in the world, feels so well realized that it puts most live-action television character arcs to absolute shame. But nuances and flaws like this are found in literally every single character in the series, and seeing everyone from the beginning overcome them and get the closure they deserve was truly the definition of satisfying. But Castlevania is an action series, and Frederator and Powerhouse Animation definitely saved the best for last. The action sequences continue the visceral fluidity that has come to define the series, but because of the chaotic, relentless nature of the events unfolding, feel way more vicious and exhausting, highlighted by the incredible one-woman army of Striga's day armor fight that feels like genuine homages to Guts' Berserker armor and Dark Souls' Artorias. The aforementioned Isaac and his duel with Carmilla being just as philosophically dense on the nature of ruling and human worth as it is a sheer spectacle of swordplay and brutality, and for the sake of spoilers, the final fight of the series, which displays nothing but pure, unadulterated eye porn as everything comes to a head in an unwinnable situation. Now, if I were to have any gripes with this season, it would mostly boil down to how shoehorned and out of place Season 4's antagonist feels. Not that they aren't cool looking or have some seriously cold as ice lines, but given how meticulous they have built every character leading up to this climax, their appearance feels like they exist merely because they ran out of plausible final bosses, and this will pop the fans who are aware of their existence. Either way, raindrops on an ocean of excellence. It's so rare that a series gets to go out on its own terms and stick the landing so expertly that I'm genuinely optimistic for the future of adult animation following this. So the Beatles are pretty good, and as a filmmaker, Peter Jackson is also pretty good. And when combined, the result is damn good. It's almost hard to put into words how meticulously and lovingly crafted the 8-hour 3-part docuseries The Beatles Get Back is. Aside from how wonderful the footage and audio has been restored by director and producer Peter Jackson, the docuseries gives a much better and more intimate context into the creative process the band went through, recording material that would end up being Abbey Road and Let It Be, while also the conversations of a live show that would lead to the famous Apple rooftop concert. I think what makes this docuseries so endearing is just how honest Jackson portrays his footage, dispelling a lot of the myths that would come out of these recordings. What was considered to be a miserable and dour period of the band is given a much more honest context, making for scenes that are heartwarming, funny, and sometimes really heartbreaking. While the 8-hour runtime of the series, each episode being 2.5 hours or so, may be excessive for some, I cannot recommend this series highly enough to anyone with either a passing love of music history or the Beatles themselves. Aggressive elevator music. This is what frontman Carmen Liu of Ginger Root lovingly refers to themselves as, with a sound that combines aspects of 60s, 70s soul, 60s power pop, and even 1980s Japanese city pop. Their 2021 EP City Slicker is something that sounds and feels aesthetically of that time, while completely feeling like something of their own. Highlight tracks like Juban District, Loretta, and the title track are infectiously catchy, with reverbed vocals and groovy instrumentation you can't help but move to, while Entertainment adds twinkly synths that all come together to create this ethereal and weightless sound that makes you feel like you're floating over vast neon-lit cities, eliciting that city pop inspiration, reminding me of the likes of Kiyotaka Sugiyama and Omega Tribe, Tatsuro Yamashita, or Takako Mamiya. Speaking of which, the music videos are equally lovely, with a slathering of retro vintage production that I can never get enough of. Gotta love art that makes you feel nostalgic of a time you have never or will never live in. Equally recommended is their earlier work like Call It Home or Weather, showcasing their vibrant indie pop sound deeply influenced by the past that's one of a kind. If you've counted out pop music as vapid radio dreck, Ginger Root definitely is a group that will make you groove and shake your head every time, or as the popular parlance decrees, it's a vibe. Am I really going to recommend you listen to an over 80-minute double album of a band more than 4 decades into their career? No. But then again, most bands that do that aren't Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden's 17th studio album Senjutsu sees the band at their most grandiose lyrically and instrumentally. If you're expecting a Power Slave or a Number of the Beast here, you will be disappointed. Even with tracks like Stratego or Days of Future Past offering that familiar, energetic Maiden gallop, I'd be lying if I didn't say Senjutsu is more of a grower than a shower. But if you can stick with it, what you have here is deeply layered songwriting and surprisingly deep lyrics of a band taking stock of their own mortality in tracks like Hell on Earth, a call to arms against the decaying state of the world in Writing on the Wall, and samurai fighting against Mongol hordes in the Thunderous title track. If we're talking about favorite track though, there isn't anything more definitive and powerful as the aforementioned album closer, Hell on Earth. Every bit as anthemic as it is haunting, it deserves to be up there with Hallowed Be Thy Name and Fear the Dark as their greatest album closers. Compared to what Maiden have released in the past 20 years, I'd say it's their best work since Brave New World. And even if it is their last album, it's one that, while deserves multiple spins, is still a quality listen. Malachi Black in AEW was one of those shocking surprises that made AEW such a fun company to watch in 2021, and when he made his in-ring debut, he immediately had the best entrance in all of wrestling, in no small part to Amon-Ra's Ogentrust, the opener to the endlessly haunting heaviness of Belgian hardcore band Amon-Ra's 5th LP, De Doorn, a truly unique listening experience unlike anything I've listened to all year. I'll be honest, I hadn't listened to the band before De Doorn, but the way Amon-Ra is able to portray atmosphere, pain, and ambiance with crushing instrumentals, conjuring less of an album you listen to in the traditional sense, rather than one you lose yourself to. While the album is sung completely in Flemish, it doesn't take away from how personal and pain the shrieks and screams from vocalist Colin H. van Eekhout deliver throughout the entire album, made even more personal once you take into context the war-torn history of his hometown of Flanders. In 47 minutes, De Doorn is the audio manifestation of feeling pain through loss and endeavoring to let go, an honest release of pent-up emotions to endeavor to heal. De Doorn is definitely an album you owe yourself to be listening to, and a band worth diving into. Whatever comes next from Amon-Ra, I'll have high excitement towards, as the band stands as musicians pushing the boundaries of the genre as some of the best in it currently. In the short history of Bristol punk band Idols, I can't honestly say that they've ever dropped a bad album. From the pounding debut of Brutalism, the emotionally intelligent positive masculinity of Joy's Inactive Resistance, and the goes to 11 maximalism of Ultramono, Idols have one of the hottest streaks in all of rock music, and their 4th LP, Crawler, continues that. What the band gives up in speed and aggression, they more than make up for in personal lyricism and moodiness. The band hasn't been strangers to being personal, but it's the way frontman and vocalist John Talbot opens up about his personal struggles of addiction, the pandemic, and a near-fatal car crash feel like therapy for Talbot, while also delivering some genuine ragers like album highlights Stockholm Syndrome, The New Sensation, and King Snake. But it's in the more stripped-back tracks like When the Lights Come On and Beachland Ballroom where the band is able to play with more subdued and experimental composition and prove that they are more than just sloganeering punks and can dive into more unique material. To most fans, Crawler may end up in the weaker end of the band's discography, but a weak Idols album is far from bad when compared to most modern rock groups today, and is among my favorite albums of the year. Okay everyone, one last fave. If All Elite Wrestling could be described in one word in 2021, it would be a dream. Following a bumpy 2020 and early 2021, the company really found itself hitting its stride with their Double or Nothing show, turning out exceptional television every single week while hiring some of the biggest stars in Malachi Black, Ruby Soho, Andrade El Idolo, Adam Cole, and Bryan Danielson. And for one night only, September 22nd, 2021, we got a match wrestling fans never thought they would ever see. Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega. Two individuals widely agreed upon for being the greatest wrestlers in the world did battle for 30 minutes with such elegant fluidity and brutal displays of violence as each man dug deep to bring out the best qualities of each other to portray a genuine classic where not a second feels like filler. To me, it's easily the best Kenny Omega match in all of AEW, and more concrete proof that Danielson is, without question, the greatest all-around wrestler of the past 20 years, absolutely ripping it up on free television. And if you're ready for me to tell you that this is the greatest wrestling match of 2021, well, you would be very wrong. The words CM Punk returns to wrestling has been the great pipe dream of an entire generation of wrestling fans. It speaks to the legacy of the man when each year ever since he was fired from WWE in 2014, whispers of return rumors sprout up and nothing comes of it. Only for one summer night in Chicago, Punk came home, promising to return to give dream matches, returning for the fans, and most importantly, because he felt it was right and everyone was happy. Everyone except the Mad King, Eddie Kingston. For nearly 2 whole decades, Eddie Kingston has been the eternal struggler, a man fighting for his life and career, forced to watch as his contemporaries within the independent scene grow and move on to bigger and better paying promotions, while he remained there, waiting, bitter, and hurt. And when he was finally signed to AEW in 2020, he would continue to struggle while his contemporaries within AEW found success, and this led him straight to the man he felt the most scorned by and a man he considered a hero, CM Punk. November 5th, 2021. Demanding an apology for interrupting him on an episode of AEW Rampage, Eddie Kingston would finally meet CM Punk in the ring, and what would follow was a war of words that come across less of a wrestling promo and more of a man bleeding his heart out to someone he looked up to, only for his hero to meet him with pure disappointment.
Years ago, but I damn sure am a fool for trying to hold you to that standard and expect greatness because you're a bum.
Nobody wants you here, they never wanted you here.
Every word delivered, feeling deeply visceral and personal, to when it was finally time for them to fight 1 week later at AEW Full Gear, those emotions would be viciously unleashed. Eddie Kingston vs. CM Punk at AEW Full Gear isn't the best match of 2021 because it's flashy or had the most build. Hell, there's no stipulation or even title. It's because it's the match I believed in the most. It does in 11 minutes what most matches that go north of 30 minutes wish they could do. Deliver a story where the wince-inducing fight feels less more like 2 men wanting to exact angry violence on each other, and more of 2 men who were genuinely hurt by each other in the past, and it's the only way they know they can settle their differences. There's a sadness that permeates throughout, where both the fans and the commentators just want it to end, and when it does, it feels like both men lose. A friendship shattered, old wounds ripped open and new ones freshly etched. In an art form where so much praise is heaped on character, athleticism, and storytelling, it's the way all these elements form into authenticity and believability that make me love professional wrestling so much. And nothing in 2021 felt more authentic and real than Eddie Kingston vs. CM Punk, because no one makes professional wrestling feel real the way CM Punk and Eddie Kingston do. Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary buds, if you made it this far into the video, I am beyond grateful for your time. I've had this video cooking since June of this year, and finally being able to share my opinions and feelings on my personal favorite things this year was both taxing, but most importantly, very fun. If you enjoyed what you watched today, please consider a like or a subscription. Tell your friends, tell your foes, because dislikes don't exist anymore. I hope to make more videos in the future, and your continued support is more than appreciated. I hope you have a happy holidays and a Merry New Year. Bang.
Follow me, walk into my mystery, step inside and hold on for dear.